Hello, hiya Gina. Delighted to be chatting to you, myself and Steve Evans.
Hi Gina, once again. Lovely
Hi,
to
Steve.
see you.
Hi, Terry.
Hello. You two know each other, don't you? You've met before?
Lots of times. Lots of times.
Yes, many times over many events over the last few years. And the first one when you came on Radio Clatterbridge to preview your first book, which was when Heather had been to one of, funnily enough, a WI meeting to see you talk and asked me, when she came back to Radio Clatterbridge and asked me if we could have you on the show. And I was like, yeah, go for it. And of course, I think that was one of your first ever sort of speaking events, wasn't it?
It was that the first time, I mean, when I wrote the first book, as far as I was concerned, you just scribble something, and if you get really, really lucky and you get published, and that's the end of it. I didn't realise that, radio interviews, speaker events. So, but I think the very first WI meeting I did, the most horrific thing, besides standing up and talking in front of like 30 or 40 women, was they had me at the front and they opened the meeting with Jerusalem. And I didn't know the words. I was horrified.
But it went quite well though, didn't it? And then since then, you moved on from strength to strength. I know you were quite grateful to come into Radio Clatterbridge to give you a bit of a platform to go on, and then you went on from there.
Absolutely, it was brilliant, and I think I dropped a few naughties in the interview, didn't I?
Or did you get bleeped out?
Yeah.
No, wasn't that bad.
Wasn't too bad. But no, I will always be eternally grateful for that, because that got me started onto it, and you were so good with the way you put me at ease. So yeah, I'll always be grateful for that.
Anyway, just going back to outside of writing, we chatted to your nephew Luca the other week.
Yeah,
we had a little
thoroughly
chat
enjoyed both of those.
You've obviously watched them, and of course David Jackson, who just happens to be your neighbour, and you didn't realise, did you, for quite some time?
No, I didn't. It wasn't until I went to one of his writing classes and I suddenly realised that we both went home the same way and into the same road.
Again, could only happen to you, couldn't it? Little things like that, But speaking of David and Luca, do you swap ideas on writing at all? I know you're different genres and that, but do you coerce with each other? And
not really. Only sort of like with Dave as a friend and a neighbour, and we've done a couple of events together. That book events and library events, and obviously Luca when we meet at family parties and get-togethers. Both Luca and Dave were very instrumental for me in the very beginning. Their support was absolutely fabulous. I couldn't have done without them. Dave's writing class was an absolute dream. It really was. And it really set me on the road to realising that was what I really wanted to do. And I remember doing my first 10,000 words. And I was very excited. And I sent them to Luca. And he messaged me back and said, "You've really got something there. It's great. But you just need another 70,000 words."
Oh, that's scary.
Really? I thought that was a book. Probably 10,000 would do it.
There must be something in the family genes, because how humorous you are. And Luca came across, well, you saw the interview. He came across brilliant. The same way. He had us in pleats till after, even though he writes crime.
Yeah.
He's so naturally funny, Luca. Yeah. He really, really is. He's just a lovely guy, and I've got to say, I'm incredibly proud to be his auntie.
Oh, good. We ran out of time. We were just, I didn't even look at the clock. I forgot to look at it. And the time, we had like 30 seconds left. So thanks, Luca. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah,
you'd be doing that with me. You'd be going like that.
Sure we will. Yeah, I remember saying to Luca, Luca, right, we'll have to go. See you later. Bye. And that was it. Over. But anyway, we move on. Go on, Terry.
Yeah. Gina, tell us about your background. You're a policewoman. The experiences you had as a policewoman, are they useful for your fiction?
They were for my first 3 books, definitely. Yeah. There was Handcuffs, Truncheon and a Polyester Thong, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot and Blues Two's Baby Shoes.
Great
and
titles.
That was a trilogy. That was a trilogy of characters 30 years in the police. So each book was like a 10-year, a decade of her career. Yeah. And basically, Mavis Upton, who's the main character, the Constable Mavis Upton, she is actually me. So the backstory to it is my own personal life. dealing with the loss of my mum and things like that. But all the little stories, the majority of them are true. They're all incidences that I was involved in the job, because although we deal with the most horrific things, one of the things that gets us through those moments is we do develop a really dark sense of humour. And we will find the funny in things that probably other people would find quite irrelevant, really, I suppose. Yeah. And that is our coping mechanism. So really the story sort of like started from that. Somebody once said to me, are all the stories true? Surely that one couldn't have happened. And funny enough, the ones that they picked out saying that those police stories couldn't have happened, they were the ones that did. Yeah. And the ones that they thought had happened were the ones that were my imagination. So it was like a bit of a mix between the two. Can't really say I brought a lot of the policing aspect with me for the new books, but that's only because I've been retired 10 years now. So things have changed dramatically within the police service. I don't think I'm qualified now to be able to put it the way. I get more from Mr. Google. In fact, if anyone looked at my search history, I'd probably get arrested. I mean, when you Google how long does it take to suffocate in a lemon drizzle cake?
Yeah, absolutely. But those first 3 books, Gina, you know, I read them all, and they had me laughing my head off. They had me crying at the emotion about your mum and so on, without going into all the detail and giving it away for those who haven't read it, and the drama involved with some of the crimes. But it was just such a great mix, you know. I really loved it. You know, they were fantastic books, those first 3. And then you've changed it complete tack now, haven't you?
I have, yeah. It was only simply because, in fact, I think you were there at the launch of Blues 2s at Waterstones when I announced there would be no more Mavis. I absolutely felt horrified because I hadn't told my publisher who was there that night, and I could see the look on his face. Matthew Irvine.
Yeah.
I just felt that I really couldn't take her any further. I did leave it open if I ever want to go back to her. But when people are paying good money to buy books and read them, you don't want to become where they're picking them up and going, oh, samey. Because, you know, it doesn't matter if it was 99p for a Kindle or £8.99 for a book. That's somebody's hard-earned money, and they're paying it out to be entertained. So I didn't really want to drag it out sort of too much. So hence the new series came into play.
Okay.
The first book, Handcuffs, Truncheon and a Polyester Thong. Who was it made you change the title? Because originally it was going to be called, can I say this? I think I can. Yeah. Handcuffs, Truncheon and a Primark Thong, wasn't it?
It was.
Now, did Matthew from Urban Publishing ask you to change it, or was it you? Or
it was Matthew and the publications team. It simply because I could have applied and asked Primark for permission to use their name in the title. The problem being is A, it could have been extremely costly, and B, they could have drawn it out so long it would have delayed publication. So Matthew said, can you come up with something else? So I looked in the label of my knickers and it said polyester, and I thought, well, that'll do. Because believe it or not, I wear them. We actually had a laugh the other week, because you know the bunting that I take on talks, and it's bunting and it's all made up of the Primark thongs, you know, the little printed cover on the front. Well, when I started out doing the WI talks, there was 30 knickers in a long line. I'm down to 10, and that's purely because when I haven't done my washing, I snip one off and wear them.
Can I ask you about knickers? The character Mavis, she says she's a hater of big knickers, a lover of crisps. What's wrong with big knickers? Is this? I'm being naive, but explain that.
VPL.
What?
Visible panty line.
All right. Never
the man of the world.
I've never worn knickers. Not today, anyway.
Yeah, big knickers, and if they've got like tough elastic, they'll give you a visible panty line. Okay. So in your trousers, you can just see the outline of your knickers. Yeah. But if you wear a thong, there's no VPL.
So it looks like you're not wearing any knickers.
True, it's true.
Yeah.
There you go. That's something you didn't know.
Didn't. I'm just writing this down for future reference. Nice one.
Oh, dear. No, I know Terry mentioned sorry, you mentioned Constable Mavis Upton, that is you. I know that, but I don't know if Terry quite understood that. That's your alter ego, isn't it? In the book,
it is. Yeah, Mavis is my alter ego.
If you read it and you know Gina, Terry, you will. If you haven't read the book, you need to read it, and it's Gina to a T. It really is. So I just wanted to lay that out there.
Yeah.
It is. Oh, I had to do it that way because when I retired, I always joked and said that I'd write a book about my career because, as you know, I'm what they call a poopy magnet. If it can happen, it happens to me. So all the funny things that does tend to happen used to happen to me, and I used to come back to the Nick and say, "Oh, you never guess what's happened," and we'd have a laugh. And somebody, quite often people say, "You want to write a book when you retire?" So that's what I decided to do. But I suddenly realised that because I'm basing a lot on real people, I had to start changing names and identities, and because I didn't want to offend anybody and I didn't want to get sued. So I couldn't use my own name, and I wouldn't have been comfortable anyway. It was sort of like highlight. It was bad enough having my name on a cover, let alone inside. So I came up with Mavis Upton, and that came from the very first 999 response job I went to after I passed my police driving course, and it was a burglary in Mavis Drive in Upton. Oh. So I just put the two together, Mavis Upton.
Yeah. Did you write? Is this all from memory? Did you keep a diary throughout your career? No, it's just all from up there. Yeah.
All from memory. Yeah. And after the first book came out, I was contacted by a lot of my old colleagues who were just so excited and wanted to share stories with me, things that had happened to them, and asking could it be included in a book. So I started developing some of the storylines came from some of my colleagues. Names changed, obviously, because while you're serving, you can't have things like that in print. I'm all right, since I'm retired.
Yeah.
And I always made sure that things were changed so that it wouldn't be identifiable, so I couldn't actually offend or reveal somebody's identity, inadvertently. Yeah. Nobody's ever come and said, "Is that me?"
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you changed the some of the descriptions, didn't you? So nobody could say, "That's me." I won't go into the detail how you tell me about that, but it was
like that. Nobody's going to cop to that one, are they?
Gina, can I ask you about your latest book, this The Murders at the Winterbottom Women's Institute? I had a quick read of this, quick delve into it. And the sort of prologue, there's like an anonymous note on there. But the last line, they say, the silent, be afraid of the silent child, for they are the ones who think. Yeah. And then it moves into what we've read so far, more lightheartedness.
Yeah, it's very different, this book. I wanted to do something on a different angle. It's irreverent humor again. It's a romp. It's like very old-fashioned sort of carry-on style humor. And that's just my style of writing. That's just the way that I do it. But I wanted a serious theme running through it. Yeah. Mainly, from the very beginning who the murderer is. And I wanted people to hate her 1 minute and then understand her the next. So that prologue chapter gives you a taster of what pops up, sort of like periodically through the book. Yeah. And I came up with that line: "Be afraid of the silent child, for they are the ones who think." Because I found that actually during my career, when I dealt a lot with children, is the ones that concerned me the most were the ones that were quiet and were silent. Yeah. And that's sort of like, I threw that out, and that prologue chapter developed from there. And then obviously the background for Phyllis the murderer all stems from that prologue.
Okay.
Yeah, just I've been reading your book over the last few nights, actually, and I've only just got round to delving into it, to be honest. And you know what, from page one, and I've heard this from many people, I've been creased up laughing more so than I've from comedy writers that have written books. Every page I'm laughing away, and I only read at night. So I've got Debs next to me going, "Will you shut up laughing away?"
Occasionally I've written something and then I've gone back to go and show my husband and say, what do you think of this? And I've started trying to read it to him. I started laughing. He goes, what are you laughing at? He said, you wrote it. I said, I know. I said, but I've forgotten. And it actually sounded quite decent on the read through.
Yeah. And Phyllis, well, in fact, Phyllis, I think is your favourite character in the book, isn't it? Without giving anything away, you know, there's some great characters in there, but Phyllis is like, I'm already loving her, even though, well, yeah, we know from the beginning.
You know from the beginning
what she's about. Yeah.
There's just, you know, this is the weirdest thing as I was writing it. When I write, I hear their voices. They all talk to me at the same time, and they give me. I can be writing a chapter and sending them in one direction, and all of a sudden they'll talk to me and say, I don't want to go there. I don't want to do that. And I find that I'm changing it around. And Phyllis did that an awful lot for me. But I actually ended up being very, very fond of her. And I think that was one of the reasons why you often hear quite often people, you know, if you look at reviews and they'll say, great book, but boy, what a letdown at the end. And I didn't want it to be predictable at the end. And I know what everyone will be thinking. So I decided to, you haven't read it yet, so you won't know, there is a twist at the end, which really quite excited me, because it was just so different and so off the wall to how I thought the book was going to end. But I thoroughly enjoyed developing the characters. Some are based on real WI ladies who asked if they could be included, but they wanted to be larger than life. There's Ethel. Have you met Ethel yet?
I don't think so.
No, don't think so. Well, Ethel is based on my auntie, who's 85, and she doesn't have a filter button at all. She really, really doesn't. But she's wonderfully, wonderfully funny. She's very barbed and very sharp, but she's so, so funny. And she comes out with the most inappropriate things at the most inappropriate times. So I gave all that to my character in that Ethel. So that's based on my auntie.
That's nice. Yeah. Gina, are you planning a series with this, or is this a standalone?
Well, it originally was going to be a standalone.
Right.
But when I signed with Bloodhound last year, they obviously read Murders at the Winterbottom. This was written 2 years ago during COVID, but I had a break because my dad was on end of life with dementia, so I wanted to spend time with him. And he passed away last June. It was only after he'd gone that I decided to submit it. Bloodhound read it, loved it, offered me a contract straight away, and immediately came back and said, is there a sequel? And I had something sort of like floating through my mind. So I said, well, yeah, I've got a working title and a little bit, right, great, we want it. And that's really how it's Murders at the Montgomery Hall Hotel. And that will be coming out in November. It's the first time I've done 2 books in 1 year. It's been hard going, this last one.
Yeah, you really surprised me with this, because you've tended to do, when you've been writing, 1 book a year, and you always said that to me. But I was surprised that you've got another book coming out so soon. It was it really was. It's not something I've ever done before, and I won't be doing another one until next year. They've asked for a 3rd, which will be next year. The rights, the Audible rights for both. Well, for Murders at the Winterbottom, the Audible rights were sold by the rights people before the book had even come out. And I'm not really, I can't say anything because it's not announced yet, but there will be news coming up in probably the coming months in relation to Murders at the Montgomery Hall Hotel. But I was actually just taking the 2 main characters with me for the sequel. But I loved Ethel, Clarissa, Millie, Hilda, you know, the little gang so much. I brought them along as well for the ride. I couldn't leave them behind. Brilliant. You've had some good news today, haven't you, on the audio? Wasn't there a newspaper article or something I saw?
Yeah, the Audible company that bought the rights for Murders at the Winterbottom WI, they were casting a most amazing lady called Julia, who's a voice narrator and voice actor. I got yesterday the MP3 download to listen to it before it comes out on the 1st of August. And she is just wonderful. She has got the ladies off to a T. It's just as I heard their voices in my head when I was writing them. That's how she sounds. She's just wonderful. So today was the release of the press conference and interview that I did. I think there's going to be an Audible sample coming out in the next day or two, and then the actual Audible is out on the 1st of August. So yeah, so today was it was good today. It was like, yeah.
Gina, can I ask about your writing technique? You mentioned that you said you allow your characters to sort of come alive in their own way, going off different direction. Did you experiment with the form that you're writing? Now, the samples I've read, they seem to be in third person. Did you ever go writing, from first person point of view? No.
Yeah, the Mavis books are all from the first person point of view. It's from Mavis that's doing it. By the time I got to the third book with Mavis, Blues Two's Baby Shoes, I started sort of like a background story running along with her exploits, but really didn't have a lot to do with Mavis, because Mavis was on maternity leave at first, and I started writing then in the third person, and I started to enjoy it. It opens up a lot more because you're not so restricted. In the first person, you're only writing about what that person sees, hears, and is involved with. So by the third book, I started developing a different sort of technique. So this is a bit of a mix with Murders at the Winterbottom. There's some retrospective stuff which you see from the prologue, and that runs through the book.
Okay.
But I do go by character. So there'll be a chapter on Avery McIntosh. There's a chapter on Pip, so that you get it's in the first person, but it still works.
When you write at home, because I've never asked you this before, do you have a time and a place, or I mean, you have a room where you're writing? Do you make sure Johnny's out, or do you do it when he's around, or do you do it at night? Because it's something I've never asked you about.
No, it's whenever something comes to me. I mean, I'm terrible for waking up at 3-4 o'clock in the morning, and I've dreamt something, and it's an idea, and I have to get it. So I've always got my iPad by the side of the bed, so I can, even if it's just notes, because I've got to that age now, I think it, and 20 minutes later I've forgotten it. So I have to write everything down. Where I'm sitting now, this is what is our family room. So it's like a lounge, a play area where we play games and stuff with the grandkids. And then there's a big conservatory, which is our dining area. At the very bottom of that, there's it's this chair that I'm sitting in now, and I have a small table. So I just get my laptop out and I sit down there and work. I've got to work in silence. I can't have music or anything like that, because it really does distract me. When I'll open the window and listen to the waterfall, I don't mind that. But I don't have any strict writing. When I'm actually doing the book, I'm very focused, and I'm quite sort of strict with myself as to the hours that I'll put in. If it's just like the moment I'm formulating the ideas for the third in the series, the Murders series, it's just as and when it sort of like comes to me. If the grandkids say, let's go to Chester Zoo, I'm sorry, I'm off to Chester Zoo, I've gone. But I'll do a bit when I come home.
Gina, you've mentioned Audible versions of the novels. Have you had any approaches for a film or a television deal, buying the film rights?
Not directly to me. I've had somebody that's made inquiries about looking at it for a TV series.
Brilliant.
It's not something that I deal with. It's the rights people, although I have the rights to the books, to film, TV and media. There's nothing concrete, nothing's actually happened. A friend of mine has taken the book and given it to a producer. But again, that could just sit on somebody's desk for the next 10 years. Even if the rights are sold, it doesn't necessarily mean that it will become a film. Sometimes, from what I've heard, is rights can be bought and that they're actually sat on because there could be something similar coming out.
Yeah, I heard other writers saying exactly the same.
Yeah,
they get paid though. Good money. Yeah, good money.
Yeah, the right side of it is, unless you're going to be really, really big as an author, you don't earn a lot of money at all. I mean, Bloodhound are amazing to work with and to be signed to, but unless you're selling massive quantities of books and ebooks and stuff, you're never ever going to be, a multimillionaire or wealthy on it, or even comfortable, I suppose. I'm very lucky because I've got my police pension. It's not as though I'm actually desperate, you know, for pennies. I am very lucky.
Yeah.
So when I do my talks and do the WIs and things like that, I get paid for doing that, but I never keep the money. I donate it to charity.
Oh.
I just feel that I'm blessed enough to be able to have been signed and have books with my name on, which was my dream. So to realise that dream, that's enough for me.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
But it's your rights for TV, film, media. That's where you make the pennies.
Yeah, true. I know things can turn, can't they? You know, tomorrow someone might spot something, and suddenly you've sold 1 million copies. You know.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, this has taken me by surprise. Murders at the Winterbottom.
Yeah.
How, you know, particularly over in America, because Bloodhound is part of the Open Road Media, which is an American, big American company.
Yeah.
So my books, even my first 3 books, are all that they're in Walmart and Target and stuff like that. So I've never had the reviews that I'm getting on Amazon.com from USA and things like that.
Yeah.
So this has become a lot bigger than my first 3 books did.
Brilliant.
And that's down to Bloodhound.
Yeah, superb.
Yeah, well, before I ask you, I'm going to ask you one about advice for new writers, because I ask everyone this same thing. But just the other thing I wanted to ask you about, are you dressed from the top off for your interview and the bottom off for going to bed? Come on, you've got to reveal it all.
I am sorry, I've got a really nice top on. I've got my faded Primark leggings on. There's a hole in the knee, and I've got my slippers on. And I just thought, whatever you do, don't stand up and walk.
Which you actually did for a WI talk, did you?
I did. I couldn't believe it. I had the worst pajama bottoms on, you know, and they were cheap Primark, and when the bum goes all big and baggy, and these fluffy slippers. But I was sitting on a stool upstairs, and I looked really good, top up, nice flowers, hair and makeup done. And then someone said to me, "Are these your books behind you?" And I said, "Yes." And I got up off the chair and went to go and get one and stopped and thought, "Ooh." And there I am in all my glory, massive big bottom in baggy pajamas. So yeah, advice to any writers: wear something decent from the waist down, or not a thong.
Not a thong, yeah, because yeah, you like your thongs, of course. Anyway, moving swiftly on. Advice for new writers. What would you say to anyone who's a new writer? What's the best approach they should take?
My thing, I've always said, everyone's got a book in them. It's just getting it down. Have a go. Put it down. Always, like when I do, I just write from the heart, and then I go through, and about 5 or 6 goes afterwards, you know, sort of like putting it down, changing chapters. You've got to get it out. You've got to get it from your head onto the paper, and then develop it from there. Whatever you do, if you self-publish or however you go about it, don't be disheartened when you start getting the poopy reviews, because everyone gets them. They sting, yeah. But don't let it knock you down so far that it knocks your confidence and stops you from doing it. And it's called the Writers and Artists Yearbook. Now that was advised to me, and it was an absolute godsend. It's got everything in it: literary agents, publishers, submission policies, the do's, the don'ts. It's like a Bible for writers. So if you're really serious about getting published, definitely get that. But no, first and foremost, get it from your imagination and get it down on paper with a pen or pencil, typewriter, whatever your medium is, get it out. And only then can you start developing where it goes from there.
Brilliant. Did you really get abandoned in your pram outside Woolworths?
Yes, I did. Woolworths, Market Street in Hoylake, 1959.
Oh,
my mum parked up, and it's where Hoylake School of Dance is now. Mum parked me up in the pram, and she went home. We lived in Newton Road then, which is a bit further down. And she got home and suddenly realised, oh, I'm sure I had a baby when I went out. But the worst thing is, I did the same thing to my daughter, but I did it worse.
Oh dear.
I put her in a Moses basket and put her on the coffee table. And then I did the alarms on the house, got out, got in the car and drove off from Upton to Hoylake. And I went over the little bridge at Sorghum Mass, and went, oh, little bumps for little girls. And I looked at the back seat and she wasn't there. She was still on the coffee table at home.
Home alone.
It's like a family thing.
Oh dear. See what I mean, Terry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you mean.
I can't believe she's got to 40 to nearly 40. She's still here.
Oh my word, is she 40 now? Oh my word.
Emma will be 40 next year. Olivia, my eldest granddaughter, was 13 last month. Little Annie, my baby Annie, little Annie, she's 10 at the end of this month, and Arthur's 3. So I'm very, very blessed. So you can see the fun I have. If you haven't played The Floor is Lava, you've never lived.
Okay. Yeah. I think what that means. Don't touch the floor. Feet, hands off floor.
That's it. Yeah. You leg it round. I actually just sit there because since I have my spine off, I can't bounce around as much as they do. But I do the shouting. I say when the floor's lava, and then they have to jump.
We used to call that barley off ground, I think, or off ground.
Yeah.
Gina, for a final question from me. I'm going to put links at the end of this, but where's the best place for people to come and buy your books?
Right. I'm a huge supporter of indie bookstores.
Totally agree.
I really felt for them during the COVID period and stuff like that. We've got an incredible independent one here, Linghams in Heswell. I would always say, please try the indie bookstores first. Try and support your local bookstores. If you can't get it there, then it's the A word, isn't it?
Yeah. The necessary evil.
It unfortunately, yes. See, with Bloodhound are predominantly ebook, and they do paperbacks of all their authors' books, but it's print on demand. I'm quite happy with that, because if you're looking at saving the planet, and doing your little bit, print on demand is great because they are only printed as to what is bought, so there's no waste. So that was important to me when I was looking for a new publisher, because my first publisher, Urbane, unfortunately didn't survive the COVID period. But yeah, Amazon, but at the moment, Waterstones, obviously you can get them from there. But if you can, try your indie bookstores first and support your indie bookstores, and then try the big ones after that. But all mine in all formats are available from Amazon. So
that's brilliant. So I don't get anyone else has mentioned that. I think people probably have to say the right idea, but nobody mentions it as much as they should do, supporting the local indie bookshops.
It's honestly, Terry, it's so important, and it's not just your local bookshops. It's your local high street. If you don't look to support them, particularly after the 2 years that they've had, we are going to lose that. And then your villages with the community spirit, you're going to lose that as well. That was the reason why my launches are normally at Waterstones. This year for this book, I held it locally, and that was important for me because particularly like the hospitality industry, they closed completely. They didn't have any options. So that was the reason behind it, was that. And the ticket sales went towards a charity that is really close to my heart, which is Incubabies Neonatal at Arrow Park Hospital. So all the proceeds from that evening. In fact, we raised over £1,000, didn't we, Steve?
I think so.
Just from the book launch. So if you can support local and particularly your indie bookshops, and that is really important.
I think that's on that final message. I think we'll have to say thank you very much, Gina. Brilliant. So chatting to you.
Thank you. Really enjoyed myself.
Good.
Let's keep in touch.
Do me a favour, just make sure you filter out the old jowls, will you? I've been trying to stretch them, but I think I forgot a few times.
Gina, it's going to cut off in about a minute's time, but I just want to say thank you. And let's keep in touch.
Thank you very much. I really, really do appreciate you asking me. And it's been really good fun. So I've known Steve for years, and he's like a good friend to me now. So I knew it would make it easier for me with both of you.
It made it easy for me, definitely, yeah.